What's going on, everyone? Talen here, and welcome to another uniform review video. Alright, so we're going to be moving on to Jean Grey's new uniform here. So here we have her X-Men red look. Looking pretty good. This is the nice classic Jean Grey that I kind of remember back from the, well, sort of from back from the old animated series. She looks a little bit different then because you had the kind of black going on now. Black in the animated series, and this is all red here. But let's go ahead and take a look here. So, Jean Grey's new uniform. I have already bought it, as you can see here. It does cost as much as Thanos's uniforms, so it is one of the kind of deluxe super premium kind of uniforms in terms of cost. So 1,500 crystals when it's on discount. We do have 6 skill changes here, and the uniform bonus is going to be an increased attack by 15%. So quite nice there. And yeah, quite a few things have changed around. Some I like, some I don't. But let's go ahead and take a look here. So her tier 2 passive is changing as well to make her a little bit more tanky, or I guess a lot more tanky, because these are some pretty big numbers here. But it's increase all resistance by 50%. Decrease all damage by 30%, and then she retains the exact same skill damage and bonus damage increase by 50%. So it's going to make her a lot harder to kill, and I've already kind of tested that because I just wanted to get a feel for her new uniform before I made this video here. So I just did a little bit of testing, nothing too crazy. I'm going to save that for a later video while I do a little more gameplay and comparison between Jean with and without her uniform. But this increase to resistance and damage reduction is actually really helpful to her, because it was really helping out her survivability when I was trying out World Boss Ultimate. And also we go down to the third skill here. The healing is actually better as well. So the healing is going to be a little bit better because it now is 65% for max HP, whereas before it was 45 or maybe 50. Either way, the difference was without a uniform, I was healing for 2,200 or no, or is it 3,200? Gosh, I've already forgotten. Either way, it's a big difference. So without the uniform, when I was using the third skill, it was either like 2,300 or 3,200 as like kind of like the base tick when I first cast the third skill. And now with this uniform, I was healing for 7,600. So it was at least double the healing. So yeah, her healing is pretty insane now. And I think they maybe upped the healing because the guard hits right here that she gets, the 8 hits for 8 seconds, does not refresh with this uniform, whereas without a uniform that guard hit did refresh. So maybe they're making up for that a little bit. Either way though, her healing is pretty insane with this uniform. So alright, so let's look at the other skills here. So the first skill, no real changes there. I think she always had a stun. Maybe she didn't have a stun, but now she has a stun there, so that'll help out for PvP. Her time freeze here did go up by 1 second, whereas before it was 2 seconds, now it is 3 seconds. It always had the decrease all speed. And then, as I just described, her healing is a lot better with this third skill here, but the guard rate does not refresh. And then also we now have this decreased for mind resistance. So minus 5% mind resistance can stack up to minus 100%. So that'll be kind of useful if you're proccing on this skill here, because as you can see, her third skill is now mind damage, or her fifth skill, which is also her other mind damage skill. And then the fourth skill right here is pretty much the same, I believe, as her other fourth skill, because she had a stun and a bind, I believe. And then the fifth skill right here, the bonuses are all the same. So the chance to penetrate is the same, the all attack, all speed, and crit rate buffs are the same. But now she gets a all defense down for 3 seconds, and then the all speed, I believe, is the same, but the all defense down is new there. Oh, that is something I forgot to test to see if that applied in World Boss Ultimate when I was doing it. Oh, dang. Yeah, so I did forget to do that. I guess we could do that real quick. But anyway, let's go ahead and hop into the skill previews here and see what these new skills actually look like. So, as I was saying before, things that I like, things that I don't like. Things that I don't like is now my fire damage obelisk is kind of not super useful on her. I do plan to get her to tier 3, and her tier 3 skill is fire damage, so maybe that'll be a saving grace. But right now she has mind damage on those 2 skills, which would want me to switch to a mind damage obelisk, but I'm not ready to do that quite yet. So here's her first skill, looking really cool. I love these kind of I want to call them icicles, but they're not icicles. They're just really cool. They're like glass spikes that come out of the ground there, and I really like that skill. The second skill now for her time freeze, it looks like it's a little more reliable in terms of time freeze actually hitting the enemies, and it does have an iframe pretty quickly, so it's a nice quick iframe, whereas the other one she kind of did the slash with the beam to time freeze them and then went into an iframe, so there's time for you to get hit. The third skill here is an iframe as well at the start of it, but then for the damaging portion of it, you are not in an iframe, so you can get guard broken out of that, so that's something to keep in mind here, because you don't get, you just get the guard on this one here. And then the fourth skill, it just kind of summons up these kind of lenses and shoots out beams, which is pretty cool. And then the fifth skill, she just summons a freaking orb of death right there, and it just sucks in everything and explodes, so that's pretty nasty. And it is an iframe as well, so yeah, was her fourth skill? Was not an iframe, yeah, that's right, because you guard broken out of that one. So for Jean here, her skill rotation seems kind of weird with this uniform. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like they really geared her towards being a character that needs a CTP of Rage, because it's kind of hard to get a really good damage proc on her with these skills, because her fifth skill, her fourth skill, her fifth and fourth skill are both cancelable skills, so you can get all the effects quite early on that. And the downside to those skills is like, partway through the skill, you're considered to be done with the skill, so your damage proc will turn off, so you're not going to get the damage proc for the full duration of this skill, so you're missing out on a lot of damage. Same with the fourth skill, like right here, it's pretty much already done, so like I can go right here and cancel out, and I still get all the beams right there. So if my damage proc went off like right here, then like before those beams are even finished, the damage proc kind of already turns off, so that's something I've noticed that it was hurting her damage. And then the third skill has a really long cooldown, or else it would be a really good skill to proc on. So basically the few kind of rotations that I kind of found that worked for me, at least, and again, I've only played around with her for a little bit, so I don't know what her best or most efficient skill rotation will be, but I do the fifth skill. You wait till you see kind of those beams start appearing, and then you cancel into the fourth skill, and then you cancel out of the fourth skill, and then you get your damage proc on either your second skill or your third skill. And the reason I include the second skill there is because the third skill has such a long cooldown, you're only going to be able to use that every other damage proc, so I needed to find a skill to proc on when the third skill is on cooldown, and it seems like the second skill is a good candidate because it's a long enough animation that you get a good chunk of damage out of the residual effects from 4 and 5. So basically I've been doing something like this, and then I go into that skill, and that's where I get my damage proc, or I go like this, like that, and then that's where I get my damage proc as well. And the third skill, of course, getting your damage proc on that one was doing more for me than damage procking on the second skill, and it seemed like that was better than just doing like 5 cancel 4 and getting your damage proc on the fourth here. And the difference was close to half a bar, I think. So with because 5 into 4, I was getting about half a bar's worth of damage on the particular stage I was testing out. And then when I did 5, 4 into 2, I was getting like 75 to 80% of a bar. And then when I did into 3, I was getting like a full bar to a full bar and maybe 10% or 20% of the next bar. So that's kind of the rotation I've been playing around with. But again, feel free to let me know your rotations for actual damage procs, because I do not have a CTP of Rage on her, because with a CTP of Rage, you're just going to be spamming all these skills, and since 4 and 5 are cancelable, you'll be getting all sorts of damage from all your other skills where you're going on about that. But let's go ahead and test out that defense down real fast. Let's go ahead and equip her uniform here, head back over to the challenges here, go over to World Boss. I was testing out on Cull when I was giving you those kind of numbers just now, but let's go into Ebony here. Oh yeah, we're using you. Where are you, Jean? Jean. Did I already pass you? There you are. Yeah, I was unlucky on the first day. Only 4% potential. Fantastic. Let's get those dodge ignore strikers in there so I can make sure I hit. And it was on her 5th skill. So let's go ahead and see if that all defense down does apply. And in the terms of damage with my mild testing with and without the uniform. It was only about a 10-second difference in damage, but I was using this team right here, and I do have Ghost Panther, and Ghost Panther gives an extra 50% fire damage, so that was applying to her without her uniform, but not with the uniform, of course. Oh, we got frozen. Alright, so let's see. So this should be the all defense down. No, all defense down immune, so you cannot do that, and it doesn't look like we can time freeze him anymore. All right, well, let's get our heal going here. All right, and now, okay, yeah, we can still time freeze him. There we go. He's frozen right now, as you can see. But yeah, if we let our kind of damage proc go back. So like I said, this is kind of the skill rotation that I was doing. Oh, we got a proc at the very end there. So that's also something that's very tough, is to actually time the proc properly on her, just because the skills are kind of short. The third skill is longer, so you have more leeway, but overall I really do like the uniform for her. She has really cool skill animation changes so far. Just because you can augment the fire damage so much without the uniform, it seems like she can still compete in terms of her damage and World Boss Ultimate so far, at least that I've seen with my current kind of setup for Jean. So if I go ahead and show you real fast. So here's my obelisk on Jean, and it is a fire damage, so she is getting 31% fire damage there and a 200% proc. That's why I don't really want to get rid of this one. And that might be why without the uniform she was doing kind of similar numbers than with her uniform for me. But again, her uniform's only at normal, so it has a lot of growth. And she should be canceling out most of that damage, because the uniform itself gives a 15% all attack, and then the uniform just being at normal here is giving her 20%, so that's already 35% of the damage, making up 35% of the 50% that I was getting from Ghost Panther in terms of the boost that the non-uniform Jean Grey was getting. So like I said, overall, I do really like this uniform for her, just because you can augment the fire damage so much on the base Jean Grey. I think you can still use her without a uniform reliably in World Boss Ultimate when you get her to level 70 and push, even further than she was able to now. But I am curious to see if that does change at level 70, if the kind of stats or damage scale better with the uniform when I get her to level 70 than opposed to without the uniform, and just kind of focusing mainly on that fire damage aspect. And maybe if I switch over to a mind damage, I would see, even more of a boost with this uniform. But for right now, I can say that the damage is relatively similar with my build for her with and without her uniform, but using Ghost Panther as my support, so that extra 50% fire damage should be taken into account when I say that. So if you don't have Ghost Panther at tier 2, or you don't have a fire damage obelisk on your Jean, then this uniform is definitely, you're going to see a really big difference, opposed to me seeing not a huge difference, but still seeing a difference. And her survivability is a lot better with this uniform. So that's kind of just my initial thoughts on the uniform here. I am going to do another follow-up video where I kind of show a little bit more gameplay in World Boss Ultimate and test them a little bit better than what I did here. I just wanted to give you my initial impressions right now when they first came out, so that anyone that's itching to buy the uniform or really wants to know kind of the pros and cons, they can kind of take this with a grain of salt and pick up the uniform for themselves or not. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and of course I will catch you in the next one.